Aiden O'Neill. Usual kind of thing, just like every Friday we'll go through the college football slate, we got 5 games today, do our picks in, talk about them, and then we'll move on to the NFL slate on Sunday and give our feast or potato famine picks. So excited about that. It's an incredible NFL slate. It's a really good college football slate tomorrow as well. Before we touch on that, though, MLB MVPs were announced last night. The rightful winners, in Aiden and I's opinion. Aaron Judge takes the AL crown. 3 MVPs now in his career. He beats out the Big Dumper and Cal Raleigh. Fantastic season for Cal. The people who were on the Cal Raleigh MVP train because of all of the offensive production from the catcher position, which relative to the other catchers in the league, he just blows them out of the water. Those are all very valid points. But if you're talking about offensive season versus offensive season, which is really what the MVP award has become,
yes,
then Aaron Judge had the far better all-around offensive season, even if the home runs weren't quite to the level of Cal Raleigh. He's a better offensive player. And Cal, yes, he catches nearly every game, and it's incredibly impressive, and he's a very valuable player to his team, but you could not go without rewarding the type of season that Aaron Judge had at the plate, because it just doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't. It was absolutely unprecedented in a lot of ways just because of how outstanding he was offensively. If you look at the advanced statistics, whether it's WRC plus or all those ones that have now really come to light, he honestly had one of the best offensive seasons ever. And for him not to win the MVP, despite Cal being a catcher, it's a grueling position for how often he plays back there. Not rewarding that, I think, would have been more detrimental in terms of baseball history when we're looking back on awards than if Cal ended up winning this thing, or if Judge ended up winning this thing, rather, as he did. And then from the defensive side, too, it's not like Aaron Judge is a bad outfielder, and I think a lot of people want him to be to make their argument better. Is playing outfield every day and catcher every day the same? Not even close. But if we want to do the defense thing, it's not like at their respective positions, Cal's defense is so much greater than Aaron Judge where it can make up for that big gap offensively. And that is why Aaron Judge won the MVP.
And Cal's a good defensive player, and everybody throws out that pass ball stats where he didn't have a single pass ball allowed during the entire 162 regular season. Mm-hmm. But his defense actually fell off a little bit compared to his past years, and it was still up there as one of the better catchers in the league. But the better player won the MVP last night, and I don't think that should be glossed over just because Cal Raleigh's got a C in the position category versus an OF for Aaron Judge and all that kind of stuff. Like, yes, relative to the position, he's very valuable. Cal Raleigh is, but it wasn't most valuable catcher. That's not the award. And so Aaron Judge had the better season. He got rewarded for it, and we were happy about it. Shohei over Schwarber in the National League as expected.
Yeah, and Shohei now has won 4 unanimous MVPs, which is quite crazy. That every time and it's because he's a unicorn. Like, if you're a voter and you're looking at Shohei Ohtani and you're looking at the production, and you look at how good he is offensively, and then this year he also pitched, it's like, how could you not vote for him? And last year he had a 50-50 season. How could you not vote for him? So he continues to break barriers. Only him and Barry Bonds now have had 4+ MVPs in their career. I would guess Aaron Judge gets another. So it just increases the value of where we stand with our feet in this current era of the MLB, and it is fabulous. There's so much talent.
And I think it's funny, at the beginning of Shohei's career when he started winning the MVPs, it was the whole, well, how valid is this actually, that are we just giving it to the guy because he does both and he's the only guy that does both? Well, he's rendered that a moot point because his offensive seasons, if you just look at the offensive production, are still good enough even if he didn't do the pitching thing.
Yep.
And so he's just incredible. And he wins another one, up to 4 for him, chasing down Barry Bonds. Let's get into college football picks. Going to start with Clemson at number 20, Louisville tonight. And not one of the better games on the slate, admittedly, but I wanted to bring this one up. It's a close spread, and it's an important game for the ACC because that conference is in a very interesting position now where they are in danger of, if a few things go this way and a few things go that way, missing the college football playoff altogether. I think there's been a lot of people reminding themselves and others that it's not just the 4 power conference winners plus another. It's the 5 highest ranked conference winners, period. And so if the ACC is in a position where their conference winner isn't ranked higher than, let's just say, South Florida and James Madison, then those two teams get in above, let's say, Duke, who is sitting with 4 losses in the regular season, but only one of them is a conference loss. They could get into the ACC championship, especially with the teams they play, and then win it. And then are they sitting with 4 losses, higher ranked than a 1-loss James Madison or a South Florida team that has some better wins? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know if they are. And so the ACC kind of needs to snap back into focus, and the teams like Louisville, the teams like Virginia, the teams like Georgia Tech just have to keep winning.
Yes.
And it's an interesting game for Louisville tonight. They're without their running back, Isaac Brown. They host a Clemson team that obviously doesn't need to be said. They have massively failed relative to expectations. Dabo Swinney's been on a seat that's getting warmer and warmer, and Clemson sitting there at 4-5 with a big win over Florida State last week, and now they're walking into Louisville. It's a very important game for the Cardinals, and it's a team kind of like in the Indiana-Penn State last week where that team might have a below 500 record, but you know the talent that's still on the field. What do you have for Louisville and Clemson?
I like Clemson.
I do too.
Yeah, and I don't want to discredit Louisville a whole lot, but Shea just hit on the chaos of the ACC, and it feels like that's just going to ensue again, especially a Clemson team still with all that talent. Penn State was 1 play away from shocking Indiana. College football, yes, the holistic season matters when you look at these 9 games, but if you're getting the value of Clemson at plus money and really at pick 'em on the road, I'm going to take the team that has more experience and on paper is the better unit. Louisville's a little banged up. It feels like it's going to be an upset tonight.
Yeah, and they've leaned on Isaac Brown in that running game. Cade Klubnik is probably the better quarterback over Miller Moss, and despite him not having Bryant Westco for the last few weeks, they just pulled off a big win against Florida State. And Dabo is kind of the coach that can galvanize a team, no matter what you can say about him. Like, they've had their back against the wall this year, and I think a late season push is not out of the cards for Clemson.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention last week, heartbreaking loss against Cal for Louisville. Like a bad loss in overtime. That could be one that kind of spirals downward. And Clemson's going to go in there and they're going to be prepared. Dabo really rallies this unit. So if you're looking for an upset pick, I think to start this week's slate, this is one of my favorites.
Keep it in the ACC. Pittsburgh is hosting Notre Dame. It's College Game Day from Acrisure Stadium, 10 a.m. tomorrow on ABC. This is a very important game for Notre Dame because we talked about it. They opened the year with 2 losses. It's the Miami loss, it's the A&M loss, and you're like, with the rest of the schedule, they have to win out to get into this thing. So far, so good for them. They've won 7 straight since the 0-2 start, and now they've kind of been gifted a ranked win opportunity on the road against Pittsburgh. Committee ranks them now. If you're looking after the 12-game sample size, you see Notre Dame in a win against a ranked team on the road will probably do a lot of favors for them and go a long way in terms of getting them in the rankings. They're sitting at the number 9 ranked team anyways right now, so they'd be in. But it would be good for them to win another game. It's a game they can't drop, and I think if they drop it, they're definitely out. A 9-3 Notre Dame's not getting in. That's not going to be the first team sitting with 3 losses to get into the 12-team playoff format. Notre Dame's a 12.5-point favorite on the road. You heard Narduzzi's comment, Pitt's head coach, asking if this is like a must-win opportunity for their playoff chances, and he's kind of discrediting the notion that the playoff is the only thing that matters, and he's also pointing to the fact that if you just win your conference championship, you're in anyways, which we just went through the whole ACC scenario, but he's probably right. If Pittsburgh loses this game and then goes on to win all their ACC games and win the ACC championship game that they're in, they are probably a team that's in at 9-3. But you don't really like to pick a team where their coach is talking about losing 110-10 and them being fine in the long run. And for that reason, plus the fact that Notre Dame is just a far better team, I think they'll handle business pretty easily on the road.
I agree. I think that this is an easy win for Notre Dame. When a coach comes out and says that his team practically doesn't have a chance, that means that the players might start to believe that in the back of their heads. And Notre Dame is just superior offensively. When you look at Jeremiah Love, their running back, he's the best in the country. He's going to soar up draft boards when it comes to that time of the year. And him being a focal point of this offense is going to come to play especially in a ranked matchup. So that 12.5-point spread kind of tells you all you need to know, I think. Pitt definitely will be right there when it comes to covering. I would stay away from that line, but I do like Notre Dame to win this game.
Let's go Iowa USC, another ranked game. Hawkeyes almost got it done against Oregon last week. Oregon was depleted offensively. They had to play Iowa's game. It was bad weather, pouring down rain, cold in Iowa's building, and they almost won it. Oregon gets the last-second field goal to jump ahead. And now Iowa goes to California to play at USC, a team that is 7-2, one loss in the Big Ten. That is it. And there's an opportunity for them, sitting at number 17, to squeak into the playoffs if a lot of things go their way. One of those things would have to be taking care of business in a game like this. They're 6.5-point favorites. I think that's too steep. Iowa is very good, even more than their usual years, of making teams play their style of football. And yes, last week it kind of played right into their hands with the bad weather and the fact that Oregon was down 2 wide receivers and down a tackle, down a tight end. It kind of played right into their hands, and Oregon still ran all over them. I think there's a big difference between Oregon and USC and their ability to match the physicality that Iowa has. And so I would say USC is the much more talented team, but I think 6.5 points is a little bit disrespectful to Iowa, just coming off the loss. Close loss to Oregon. I think they keep it close. I do think USC can squeak out a win, though. I think the passing attack will prove to be a little too much, and it's not like Iowa offensively gives you an insane amount of hope that they would keep up with USC if they find a groove offensively, even in 1 or 2 of these quarters. So yeah. I've got USC winning, but I do not think it'll be a game where they cover by a touchdown, like the spread indicates.
I like that. I think the combination of USC's offense, Maeva is their quarterback, talented receiving room, combined with Iowa's lack of offense, despite them likely keeping this close game, has to make me go with USC, and they're at home as well. But 6.5, that's a lot of points to cover against a difficult Big Ten team who was just neck and neck with one of the better teams in the country. This one being on Big Ten Network, not a whole lot of people will be watching it. But
yeah, that's so funny that this one ended up on Big Ten. It's going to be a really good and important game for that conference, especially for USC. They're sitting in a position where if they win the remaining 3 games because of this Iowa matchup, which is ranked, and then at Oregon the following week, that's a really good resume builder. Their only losses have been a close one to Illinois and a 10-point loss at Notre Dame. So they have a Michigan win. They would then have Iowa and Oregon wins. I know we're jumping the gun a little bit here, but USC is in a little bit of a control your own destiny standpoint if they get this one done. Let's get into the SEC for a couple good matchups. Oklahoma at Alabama is a big one. Oklahoma, the 11th ranked team in the latest edition of the College Football Playoff Committee rankings. Alabama sitting top 4. They would be in that first round bye discussion right now in that position. They're 6-0 in the SEC. They are 8 wins in a row after the opening week loss at Florida State. They're sitting at 5.5-point favorites at Bryant-Denny Stadium. What do you got in?
I kind of like an upset here. Wow. And it's been because Alabama's been on a roll. They're 8-1, and it could just be your traditional Alabama, the Crimson Tide. They find their stride at the best part of the season. But Oklahoma, too, when John Mateer's been on the football field and he's been at his best, they've been one of the better teams. And even at that loss to Ole Miss a couple of weeks ago, he was still banged up. The throws didn't look as good as they normally do. He kind of got back to that against Tennessee, but still not fully back. I think this is when he proves to the country that I'm still John Mateer, I'm still here. And they walk into Alabama and they pull off the upset. I think it's going to be close all the way down to the wire, but give me Oklahoma by 3 points.
I've got Alabama winning, I think, pretty comfortably in this game. I'm very high on Alabama. Ty Simpson, what he's been able to do at quarterback has really hidden in points the deficiencies that they've had running the football. And I think in the long run, in terms of like national championship talk, Alabama's going to have to figure out how to run the ball effectively. And so far, that has not been the case. They really struggled against LSU in that department. That's why they couldn't break away in that game. And it was kind of still in that murky, can LSU make this thing really interesting late in that ball game? But Bama's defense has just steadily been improving and becoming one of the best units in the country week after week. LSU didn't even score a touchdown on them. I mean, it got so bad on LSU's side that they benched Nussmeier at the end of that game. And so I do worry about, against Oklahoma, the really good defense, really good ability to stop the run. Alabama, that's what they struggle at. I think it turns into, okay, can Oklahoma score points? You talked about Mateer. He's really struggled after the thumb injury. I think they rushed him back for that Texas game. He should have never played in that contest. He has not looked – they've won 2 games since then, South Carolina and a big one at Tennessee. He didn't look good in either of those games. He was 19 for 29 with an interception, no touchdowns, 159 through the air, and a 33-point performance against Tennessee. It's because they all of a sudden were able to run the ball. And I think they'll try to do that same formula again, running the football against Alabama. That's been harder and harder for opponents to do against the Crimson Tide week after week. And I think it ends up where Oklahoma is very limited offensively. And even if Alabama has to just rely solely on Simpson and his arm and that wide receiver unit, I think that's enough to get a pretty comfortable win at home against the Sooners. Texas, Georgia, to round us out. Best game of the night, 5:30 p.m. Arizona time. It'll be a night kickoff in Sanford Stadium. For years, Sanford, they've complained about not enough night games. Well, this is a big one. They host the Texas Longhorns, number 5 versus number 10 in the country. Both teams sitting at 1 SEC loss. It's a Texas team that they're 7-2. They have lost at Ohio State. They have that bad loss against Florida. They're in a position where they have this Georgia game left and then the Texas A&M game at the end of the season. And there's been a lot of talk, a lot of momentum towards they could be okay losing one of those games and still getting in as the first ever 3-loss team in the playoffs. And right now, that number 10 ranking, plus the other things that can happen around them, one of the better strength of schedules. It's not crazy to subscribe to that kind of talk. And I think the more likely situation is them losing this game at Georgia and then winning that A&M game. But it could go either way. A&M's been really good. Georgia has, as we've talked about in prior episodes, played with their food a lot in certain games. They got away from that in a big win against Mississippi State, wire to wire. I think it's the same here. I think Georgia wins by a touchdown. I'm still not fully bought into Arch Manning able to walk into an environment like this against the Georgia team that's always been built on defense, no matter if it struggles at certain points here and there. It's Kirby Smart at the end of the day. I think Kirby Smart will make it his mission tomorrow night to make Arch Manning's life hell, and I think that gives Georgia and the Bulldogs a win.
We, too, have no reason to believe in Arch Manning in Texas fully yet because they haven't proven it. So you got to see it to believe it. And the environment on the road at Georgia is one of the more difficult ones to play in the entire college football landscape. And they've hit their stride. Yes, they've played with their food, but the matchup against Texas, it being at home, I just think it's a little too much. So I've got Georgia getting it done by 10 points.
Texas is interesting because it really begs the question of how much value do you place on the Oklahoma and Vanderbilt wins. Because in this little 4-game winning streak post the Florida loss, they have 2 road victories against Kentucky and Mississippi State, 2 of the weaker teams in the SEC. And they were both like skin of your teeth wins.
Yeah.
And then those other 2 were at home against an Oklahoma team that was top 6 in the country, I think, at that point. But it was Mateer, what we just talked about, being rushed back with a hand injury and him not looking anything close to the self he had pre-injury. And then in that other win, it was against a Vanderbilt team, and they're still tossed up on whether Vanderbilt is a premier team in the country.
Yeah.
And that was a game where they dominated the entire time, and then Vanderbilt scored like 3 unanswered touchdowns on them in the fourth quarter to make that a 3-point game. And so I think when you evaluate Texas, you first have to evaluate those 2 wins. And I think you're right. I don't know if they've actually proved much of anything. Maybe their most impressive result from what we've seen since is keeping it to a touchdown loss against Ohio State with how good Ohio State's looked.
But also that was an Ohio State team that wasn't fully clicking yet.
Correct. Yeah, it's week 1 at the end of the day. So yeah, I think that all comes to show Georgia's 6.5-point favorites at home. I think it's the same thing. Similar spread to that Bama-Oklahoma game. I think it's similar results. The home team wins by a touchdown or more. All right, anything else college football slate-wise? Got some important Big 12 games, Utah, Baylor, TCU, BYU. The Big 12 is in the same spot as it always is. It's still got to be sorted out in the final couple weeks of the season. And so our eyes will be on those matchups because there's still an outside chance that ASU, if they win out, can squeak their way in with tiebreakers and all that kind of stuff. I think it's going to come down to chaotic tiebreakers again in the Big 12. Are you ready for the NFL?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Same thing. We're going to pick 2 of our feast picks each week, 2 teams that we think are going to have really good matchups and take advantage of them and win comfortably, win by more than they're expected to. And then 2 potato famine picks where we think 2 teams are going to struggle more than they usually do and have bad matchups their way. You want to start, Aiden?
Yeah, I'll start. I actually really like the Rams this week at home against the Seattle Seahawks. This is going to be one of my feast picks, and I think it really comes in when it's only a 3.5-point spread for LA. I think they cover this with ease, and it's because they have the favorite for the MVP and the rightful winner, in my eyes, in Matthew Stafford. This offense has been next level elite. If you stack that up against the Seahawks offense, I think the Rams have the edge. And the pass rush, too, it's plenty good enough against a Seahawks team that isn't the greatest at running the football. This is going to have to be a Sam Darnold game where he delivers, and he has been delivering. He's been great so far this season. But with it being a divisional matchup at SoFi Stadium, I just have to take the better football team, and the better football team also happens to be playing at home.
The Seahawks have been fantastic. I've been very high on Seattle from really the beginning point of the season. They have one of the best point differentials in the league. I think it's second only to the Indianapolis Colts. They've been ridiculously hot. They're undefeated on the road. They're winners of 4 straight games. They're one of the only teams in the past however many years to have 3 different games where they've scored 30-plus points in the first half. I mean, they have been fantastic. Sam Darnold has been making throw after throw. He's somehow delivered an even better season than he did last year in Minnesota. The Seahawks they're legit. And you think about Mike McDonald's first year last year, they were winners of 10 games where they had an awful offensive line and they had Geno Smith. And now you see Geno Smith with the bad offensive line in Las Vegas. They're not even close to 10 wins.
Yeah.
And so I think Mike McDonald showed that he was a fantastic coach last year, and now he's actually got a team to back that up, and they're 7-2. This is a this is probably game of the week in my opinion.
For sure.
NFC West, it's still up for grabs. These 2 teams have been balling lately. I'm with you. I had the Seahawks as one of my famine picks. Even though I'm so high on them, I think this is a game they lose, and this is a game you can lose. Stafford has been fantastic. It's him versus Drake May right now, really, for MVP. May just had a great game last night. Can Stafford do it and match that against the Seahawks team? The Rams, kind of the nerd talk lately, have been how much 13 personnel they've been running, where they have 3 tight ends on the field and they're playing heavy. I think if they do that again, that's a good counter for the Seahawks' physical defense, and that might give them an edge here. And Stafford, his stats are just incredible. I don't know, even if the Seahawks play their best defensive game, you trust Stafford to get it done and do just enough for a win. And I have the LA Rams taking this one as well. So you had the Rams as one of your feast picks. I had the Seahawks as one of my potato famine picks. What's your other feast?
My other feast pick is actually the Kansas City Chiefs at the Denver Broncos. I'm just not sold on the Denver Broncos, and if they go 9-2 and they win another one, all I can do is tip the cap. But there's a reason that KC is favored by 3.5 on the road. It's good value. It feels like it's going to be a Chiefs win. They know that you got to put the pedal to the metal now because there really is time running out. And the rest of the AFC has somehow been really good. Even though the conference is up for grabs, you see wins everywhere. And it's intriguing. But the Chiefs are still Super Bowl favorites. And it's got to start now. I think it starts on Sunday.
My first feast pick, the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Falcons have either showed that how is this team in the NFL, or they have shown that they are like the thorn in the side team of possibly beating the Colts last week and then beating the Bills one of their weeks. And they've looked really good in certain sample sizes, and they almost beat the Patriots, who were playing their best football. And so I think they have one of those performances this week against Carolina and finally get a win on the board that they've kind of deserved in a lot of matchups and haven't gotten. But their last couple games have actually looked pretty good, and despite the defense has looked great, and Penix has kind of just been dependent on Bijan and Drake London, but with this kind of offense, he should be. Mm-hmm. And I think the Panthers have kind of just had too much smoke blown up them, and they're 5-5. That's too good of a record for the Carolina Panthers. I think they're building something with Canales, but the Falcons win this one. I just took the Panthers to lose to the Saints last week in a weird NFC South game. This could be a weird NFC South game itself with the Panthers now doing the return and beating the Falcons at Atlanta's place. But I just think the Falcons have been playing good football, and they have some positive regression to the mean in terms of their record. And I'm thinking it's more likely that the Falcons go 4-6 than 3-7 when it's faced up against a Panthers team that I think is more likely to be a below 500 team than walk out of Atlanta with a 6-5 record.
Yep.
So I think the Falcons finally get over the hump in terms of a win when they're getting to play the Panthers.
And earlier this season too, the Panthers beat Atlanta 30-0.
Yeah, that's a great point. Will that happen again?
No.
I don't think so.
So the NFC South, when you look at trends, it's one of those divisions where if one team does really well in this matchup, they all play twice. So that next time, you might as well just pick the other team.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, famine time.
Famine time.
My first famine pick, I have the Philadelphia Eagles on prime time, losing to the Detroit Lions. And this is a bold one, but it comes down to the offense discrepancy for me. And I think Detroit can just outscore Philly. They have coasted to this 7-2 record, but I think you'd be kidding yourself if you would say they've looked nearly as convincing as their Super Bowl selves. And I like Detroit. I mean, Dan Campbell, he took over the play calling duties, and last week they looked really good. They're building something. They're healthy. So I think Detroit wins.
I'll finish up my feast because the Seahawks were my famine technically. I wanted to talk about this Texans-Titans game. I had the Texans winning another one, even though Davis Mills is still playing quarterback. I think that Texans-Jaguars game was maybe very important to how the season shakes out. The Texans have the defensive unit to go on a run at the end of the season, and it's an AFC South. I know they're 3.5 games back from the Colts right now, and they're actually still behind the Jaguars. But that comeback victory against Jacksonville with a backup quarterback can really, really spur you on for sustained success. In terms of that, they're going to get Stroud back eventually. The Colts have shown vulnerabilities in the past few weeks. They turned the ball over ridiculous amount against Pittsburgh in that loss, and then they almost lost to Atlanta. They needed really some really good plays that went really. They needed some luck. They needed some big plays that went their way to beat that Atlanta team in Germany last Sunday. And they're on a bye. The Colts are on a bye. I think if the Texans win this one, they're 3 games back. And then next week, you're looking at the Colts playing the Chiefs. And so then it's another chance to get a game back. And I'm not going to sit here and say that there's enough time for them to fully bridge that gap. But I think the Texans do make a late playoff push in an AFC that's been really muddled. And I think it starts with a big-time victory over a lowly Tennessee Titans team. And so that was one of my feast picks.
I like it. And if the Texans can't get that done against Tennessee, then
all of what I just said in the last 3 minutes is completely irrelevant.
Yeah. Well, you hope there's not as much chaos on the AFC South side, even though that's been one of those divisions as well. My other famine pick, I had it here, is the Chicago Bears at the Minnesota Vikings. This is just weird. It's not that I think either team is particularly good, but the Vikings sitting at 4-5, I just think it's way, and you just said it's way more likely that the Atlanta Falcons aren't 3-7 or whatever it is. Do you really think the Chicago Bears are going to be 7-3?
No, I actually had the Bears as my last famine pick too.
That's so hard
we're on
to
the same
comprehend for me. And they're at Minnesota. We know that's a tough place to play with how phenomenal the crowd is. And earlier this season, it was, I believe, the opener when J.J. McCarthy had a big game, kind of got everybody excited when they beat Chicago. I think they end up sweeping this season's series. If the last couple of games for Chicago went differently, I'm probably picking the Bears here. But I just don't see them starting 7-3. That is crazy if so, and so much credit to Ben Johnson.
Their best trait has been the resilience, but they've gotten to have resilience. They've come from behind to win games, and that's been against bad teams.
Yeah.
Like the best defense they have beaten, Aiden, is the New York Giants last week at 24-20. Their other wins were Bengals
Yeah.
Saints, Commanders, Raiders, Cowboys.
Yeah. It's bad defense.
There's no other games with the W's. Those are terrible defenses. The best defense they've played is legitimately the Giants to beat them. They played the Ravens and lost. They played the Lions and lost. And they played the Vikings and lost. I think they lose to the Vikings again on the road. Brian Flores and that defensive unit on the Vikings is their best quality, especially when they're kind of in a developmental project with their quarterback, J.J. McCarthy, still. I'm still firmly a believer in the fact that if Carson Wentz was serviceable enough for that team, he'd still be the starting quarterback. I think there's some regret creeping up lately about that draft pick of J.J. McCarthy a couple drafts ago. And I think even because of all that, I guess I just started swaying a little anti-Vikings, but I do think the Bears lose this contest. I think Minnesota is favored for a reason. I don't think the Bears are 7-3, to your point. When they've played defenses of the Vikings caliber, they have lost this year. Their wins have, again, only come against the poorest of poor defenses. And I think Caleb still has kind of a long way to go in terms of, if we're talking developmental, I think he's still got a long way to go. He's still not making aggressive throws. He has one of the worst completion percentage relative to expected completion percentage, which takes in the fact that throws you're making, the openness of the targets. So the throws that he decides to make, that he's confident in himself to make, are like the easiest of easy throws.
Yeah.
And he doesn't take any other chances, and he's still not completing those to a high enough level, which is what that stat tells you. So I'm still not a huge believer in Caleb Williams, so it's two quarterbacks that I don't fully believe in yet. And so then it's a defensive question, and the Vikings have the much, much better defense, plus they're playing at home. And we just saw the Vikings, they're still capable of wins. They just beat the Detroit Lions a few weeks ago. So I'm with you. This is another one of my potato famine picks, are the Bears.
On the money, man.
So those are our picks.
Yeah, I mean, we both, coming out of college for Caleb and J.J. McCarthy, when we were first starting our shows, had our gripes and our weren't too big of fans, and they're aging kind of well at the moment. So that's good to see.
Yeah. Drake May, meanwhile, in that draft class. Jaden Daniels went to the NFC Championship game last year.
Right.
Buccaneers-Bills is another huge game that we didn't have in our picks, but still needs to be talked about. I am more worried than I was with Tampa like a month ago, because Baker just was winning every game.
Yeah.
No matter how tough it got. They've lost some of that. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't worried about the Bills too. And you've seen what they can do on the field. Josh Allen played like a perfect game against the Chiefs in that Buffalo win. But then that's an inexplicable loss last weekend against the Dolphins, and they've lost a game to the Falcons this year, and they looked like the much worse team against the Patriots when they beat them earlier this season. And I think it's Josh Allen. All the conversation we had about Mahomes the last couple of years of not having enough help, Allen's becoming that conversation too. And he doesn't always get talked about it because James Cook is so good, and they've been able to lean on the run game. They're the only team in the NFL that hands the ball off more than they throw it, which is crazy when you have Josh Allen at the helm. But if James Cook has been bottled up in their games, they have lost. That's what happened against New England. And defensively, it's the opposite. They are very vulnerable against the rush. That's what the Dolphins were able to do with Achane last week. I think that if Tampa just focuses on stopping the run and stopping James Cook, then in a game that the Bills just ruled out Dalton Kincaid, I don't know who Josh Allen can confidently throw to. They have Shavers. It's Shavers, it's Shakir and Keon Coleman, who can't get separation against anybody. It's not a good receiving unit at all. And Kincaid has been that safety valve. James Cook has been the one to lean on. It's becoming an offense that is getting too easy to hone in on and stop. And it's not a good sign for the Bills. They're heavy favorites in this game at home, but I think that Kincaid injury should move the line more than it does. It's an offense that looks way different without Kincaid, because then a team can really, really stack the box against James Cook, and then it's more questions than answers for that Bills offense.
Well, also there's so many similarities, and I wanted to bring this up, of the Baltimore Ravens and the Buffalo Bills and their sense of complacency when it comes to addressing the wide receiver room because of having a star quarterback.
Yeah.
Because of Lamar Jackson being able to do enough. When has the Baltimore Ravens had a star wide receiver in his whole time there? Never. The Bills had Stephon Diggs for just a little bit, but then they enter this era with Khalil Shakir, with Keon Coleman trying to fix it that way. They need to get these quarterbacks a number one option because they're winning MVPs without a true number one receiver, and it's simply unfair in a lot of ways. It's unfair.
Yeah, I agree. It's a team that you try to gear up defensively because you know the quarterbacks in your conference, and you sometimes lose sight of help out your starting quarterback a little bit.
Yep.
And I think they've run into that. One last international game, it's Commanders-Dolphins, a little bit stinky there. Bengals-Steelers is a game in the AFC North. Anything can happen in that conference or in that division. Chargers play at the Jaguars. Will the Chargers continue to roll? They're looking at an 8-3 record. If they can get that win on the road. Niners play at the Cardinals. That's an important game for the Niners to keep up in the NFC West race, especially when you know one of the teams ahead of you are going to lose. So a win for the Niners will tie them with the loser of that Seahawks Rams game, at least record-wise. And then you touched on the Sunday Night Football game, fantastic game against the Lions and the Eagles. So,
great slate. I think it's one of the better slates we've had in the NFL this season.
I agree.
So I'm really looking forward to Sunday.
Patriots were able to extend the winning streak to 8 games last night with their win over the Jets.
Just crazy.
9-2 record now. We were looking at their schedule before we came on. They have 6 games left. 2 of those 6 are against the Bills and the Ravens. You could put those as losses right now. Well, those other 4 games are Bengals, Giants, Jets, Dolphins. With the way they're playing right now, they're not losing any of those games. You're looking at 13-4 as kind of a conservative estimate. As kind of a prediction that they don't beat either the Bills or the Ravens. And 13-4 will give them the 1 seed. So
yes. And then you're 3 wins away from a Super Bowl.
Yep.
And I don't think that the Patriots are a true Super Bowl. I can envision them winning a championship contender in my head, but you also have to just recognize how it's been. Like, yeah, easy schedule or not, Drake May has played like an MVP. Travion Henderson last night emerged as, where has he been, sort of guy, and because he's so gifted running the football. So they're a team to watch out for. They're totally a candidate after, even if they get that first round bye, playing a team that's better than them and losing. But if you get the 1 seed, you increase your odds drastically.
And both their losses were beginning of the year, and they both had fluky stuff to them. I mean, that Raiders loss, I don't even know how you explain that now.
Yeah.
I think you just draw that up to week 1.
They
didn't know quite what they were doing yet. And that Steelers loss, they turned the ball over half a dozen times.
There's a world where they're 1 loss right now.
Yeah, or even undefeated, and you can go the whole easy schedule thing, but their 2 big tests were at Bills, at Buccaneers, and they won both of those games.
They did.
And they kind of handled both of those games. The Bills game ended up being pretty close. I think that was a 3-point win, but they kind of handled that Buffalo team. And then that Buccaneers game last week is every time Tampa would punch, they punched back harder. And so they've showed signs of being legit. They've also shown signs where, yes, you can kind of agree with what Cam Newton said on First Take this morning, that they're a little bit of fool's gold. But because of how the schedule stacks up the rest of the way, we're not going to know that until they're in the playoffs. And they're probably going to be in the playoffs hosting a game. So it's time to pay more attention than people have even been paying up to this point.
It's unfair.
They're winners of 8 in a row. I don't care who they're playing. That's hard to do in the NFL.
There's these teams that wait their whole entire franchise's history to find a franchise quarterback or to even get to the playoffs. And the New England Patriots had Tom Brady, had a dynasty, came back from down 28-3, won the Super Bowl. And they have a small lull with Jacoby Brissett and company, and now they're back. It's like, think about if you're the fan of, there's 10 different teams you can name, the Carolina Panthers, and you look at what the Patriots are doing. And we had the number 1 pick at one point, drafted Bryce Young, but we're not even close to where the Patriots are now. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Some teams just know how to do it.
Yeah, and I think Patriots fans start to think of, like, if we would have just jumped off the Bill Belichick ship earlier than they did, like, what could be, like, that gap might have even been shorter.
Yeah.
What if they had a guy that could develop Mac Jones, kind of what we've seen in San Francisco at points this year? It's just, it could still be Mac Jones there, and then you wouldn't even be talking about Drake May. We talk about how lucky Patriots fans are and how short that stint between Brady and May was, but it could have been shorter at the end of the day.
It could have
been. Yeah, we're talking about them as 1 seed right now. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
It's nuts.
All right, you got anything else?
I think that's all. I'm looking forward to watching some ball. ASU needs a win against West Virginia. Early start tomorrow at 11, so
Yeah.
should be a fun weekend overall. Looking forward to it.
Great slate of football. That's all we've got for the Irish Hello. Shane Maloney, Aidan O'Neill. Yeah, and digest those picks as you want them. We were kind of sharp last week, so.
We are sharp. The sharpest knife. See y'all.